Welcome, everyone. Hello, my name is John Tane, and it is my pleasure as head of research here at Asia Art Archive to welcome you to tonight's program, Faraway, So Close, Artists' Residencies Outside the Circuit. I'm very excited that we have the good fortune to have three fantastic guests here with us. But before I get to the formal part of the introduction, I want to start with a bit of personal history, and please bear with me for this. So the first time I came to Hong Kong was in 2008. I spent less than 24 hours here. It was a literal flyby as part of a travel-packed itinerary, so it almost didn't count. The second time I came was in 2014. And on that occasion, I was visiting a friend who happened to be doing a residency, see the connection, at Spring Workshop, which, though the Wan Chuk Khan MTR station at that point was not yet in existence, was already gaining a reputation as a great organization for Hong Kong arts ecology. On that trip, I got to know the texture of the city, spent time with people who are still some of the oldest friends I have here in Hong Kong, and even got to tour Sha Tin by bicycle and trek around Llama Island by foot. It's possible that without that visit, I may not be here today. I start with that anecdote to suggest the particular power of the residency, even if in that case, I was only kind of an indirect resident, to serve as a matchmaker of sorts for people and places. And of course, Spring Workshop was not alone. AA had its own intermittent residency program. And there's also still Parasite, its ongoing residency, and the more informal and speculative place, which is a kind of a younger program run through word of mouth on Llama Island. Beyond Hong Kong, there is Bamboo Curtain Studio and Treasure Hill in Taipei, Chemeti Art House and Kunchi Cultural Institute in Yogyakarta, Tyler Print Institute in Singapore, Tokyo Wonder Site, now Tokyo Arts and Spaces, among literally hundreds of residency programs that have contributed to introducing artists from different parts of the world to various locations across Asia. In other words, while they may not be as public-facing as exhibitions or other manifestations of the contemporary, residencies nevertheless have played a defining role in the history and development of contemporary art across Asia. Nevertheless, many of them are located in urban centers. And what we are here to talk about today are residency programs that are not situated in city centers, but rather remove themselves and in some ways ask different sets of questions. So then when the residency is located outside the normal circuits of art, in settings normally thought of as remote or isolated, what happens? What possibilities emerge when artists remove themselves from the usual cycles of exchange and production? On the occasion of Crafting Communities, the current exhibition at Asia Art Archive focused on the biennial Womanifesto project, which was active from 1997 through 2008, and whose two crucial events on a farm in Isan province form a core part of the exhibition. We assembled this panel to invite artists from three different contexts to discuss the questions posed above, taking as examples the residencies that they themselves have organized in rural or natural settings. In addition to learning about the residencies themselves and the qualities and conditions unique to each, the conversation will also invite them to reflect on commonalities between them. They will speak about what motivated them to organize residencies for other artists, the effects that such gathering produces on the visitors, but also on the places and communities that host them, and how such gatherings, often international in scope, might shift the way we think about the meaning of the local. So the three speakers that we have represent three programs. One of them is Gram Art Project, based in Paratsinga, a small village of about 4,000 in Madhya Pradesh in central India, which brings together artists, critics, architects, social workers, and farmers to collaborate and work with the rural community on issues related to the environment, women's education, and rural India. As part of its program, GRAM organizes festivals and invites artists to spend time in the village, learning about local crafts and practices. Shweta Bhattad, a founding member of the GRAM Collective, is an artist and performer from Nagpur whose work often deals with women's education in the female body, and she will be representing and speaking about GRAM. Our second speaker, Chen Dao Chen, is the organizer of Tree 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 Person, Taroko Arts Residency Project, which since 2015 has invited artists to a national park in eastern Taiwan to live with members of the Chukuk tribe, on whose land the park is located. Through the interaction between the high mountain indigenous community and the artists, the project encourages the revisiting and reimagining of the relationship between human beings and nature. Chen Dao first visited the villages in 2011 as part of an ecology program, and the mountain setting and the culture of the community inspired him to establish a project, which to date has worked with over 20 artists. Finally, last but not least, Womanifesto is a biennial initiative founded by women artists active in Thailand from 1997 to 2008. While it initially began as an exhibition-based project in Bangkok, two of its iterations in 2001 and 2008 took the form of a workshop and residency, bringing in a total of 24 participants to Boom Bandarn Farm in Northeast Thailand. Nitaya Uyara Riworakul, one of the founding members of Womanifesto, co-organized the Womanifesto workshop and residency programs. She lives in Kantaralak in Northeast Thailand, where she is also part of the Border Art Group, which conducts community art workshops. So with that, we'll begin the conversation. And also, just a small point, actually, before I start, our panelists will be speaking in English, Mandarin, and Thai. For those of you on Zoom, please select interpretation in the Zoom webinar controls at the bottom of your screen, and then choose English, Chinese, or Thai to choose your language. For those of you joining via Facebook Live, due to technical reasons, we, I think, can only have the original channel. So if you would like to hear the simultaneous interpretation, please join us via Zoom. Okay, so now with that out of the way, let's begin. So as a way to kind of introduce our audience members to the various residencies, I was wondering if each of you could speak a little about the residency program that you were involved with. So maybe I can start with you, Nitaya, since we've been talking about the residency and workshop programs for a while now, but I was wondering if you might be able to say a few words about the workshop and residency projects that Womanifesto organized in 2001 and 2008.
Hello, everybody. I want to introduce the overall the artist residency in 2008 at Bun Bandar Farm in Srisaket, northeast of Thailand. We invite 8 artists with multidisciplinary. Every time we mix between established and emerging artists. Back then there's 6 artists. Gaciera from Argentina, Lillian from Switzerland, Pap Tawan Suwannakut from Australia, Onanong Anumon from Thailand. Last is a local artist. She was 70 years old, Pan Parahom, and she's the landlady. She owned the Bun Bandan Farm.ก่อนที่จะให้ดูภาพ Before you see the photos, I would like to introduce you some video clips that we record in 2001. I would like you to see how when we gather together like friends and families, it's full of happiness. We be with nature and spend time in the rural areas, in the settings of farmers and northeastern people or Isan people. Can I have the video of the 2001? That's a very short clips. That workshop is under the concept of 10 days picnic to live and eat together. Back then, participants, artists, curators, art management, communities, students, altogether it's about 30 people in 10 days. Of that workshop. Because of that workshop, I and Bacha thinking of spend time together longer. So think about artist residency. That is happened in 2008. Invite artists for a longer period of 5 weeks. When artists stay for 5 weeks, what did they do? They interact with each other. They explored communities, natures, forests, participants in the ways of living of people there, like go to temple making marriage, giving hands in harvesting rice, experience local crafts, weaving fabrics, weaving mat, Molam folk music, or even a poetic Isan sayings. During the 5 weeks, apart from share their experiences, there is a workshop with students in the area and city nearby. We have 2 days workshop. One day is for schools. The other day is for vocationals and university level. In the end, we have open studios for peoples and communities and students and educational institute. I would like to show you some photos of the artists who work there. Can I have some photo? Can I have photos, please? This is work by Casera, Argentinian artist working with the community. She installing her work. Her work is about a spirit house.
จำลองของสัญลักษณ์ของความเป็นหญิงชายอยู่ในงานผลงานนะคะคือลักษณะเป็นทั้งเรือเป็นทั้งบ้าน
She's built it as a house, like a house, and also boat. This is a workshop with the students that Kasiara work with students for them to write how they're feeling and remember how they feel.
Next piece ต่อไปเป็นออนอนงค่ะ
This is on Anong work. She's on the left.
ผลงานทำเวิร์กช็อปร่วมกับนักเรียน
She did a workshop with students.
ออนอนงได้ทำงานทอ
She weave mat.
เกิดการทดลองทำงานขึ้นมาร่วมกับ
She experiment with Pan Parahom, local artists.
ร่วมในกิจกรรมครั้งนี้ภาพนี้จะเป็นภาพพอร์เทรตของแม่ปานเลยนะคะ
She weave a Pan portrait.
ความคิดความรู้สึกของการอยู่ร่วมกันโดยเฉพาะในเรื่องของการให้และการถ่ายทอด
She expressed how her feel while living together here in her work.
นฤมลปัดสำราญค่ะ
Nalimon Patsamran
ในภาพนี้ก็ทำเวิร์กช็อปร่วมกับนักเรียนค่ะ
work with students.
ประติมากรรมจากลวด
Scout
ค่ะ
wire.
ภาพนี้เป็นในระหว่างที่นฤมลกำลังทำงาน
This is Nalimon working.
นะคะกระสอบนี้จะเป็นกระสอบสำหรับบรรจุข้าวสารนะคะของชาวนา
This is working with rice sacks.
Next piece
Original use for rice
ต่อไป
containing.
เรียนค่ะ
This is a Lian
เป็นภาพเวิร์กช็อปนะคะ
workshop with students
แอนิเมชันนะคะแบบ
working in basic animation.
เหมือนกันค่ะ
Yeah, the same flipping animation.
ต่อไปคือภาพตะวันสุวรรณภูมินะคะ
Pap Tawan.
จำได้ว่าภาพตะวันสุวรรณภูมิจะมีความสุขมากกับการที่ได้
I remember she was so happy
เงียบสงบ
to note down her memories.
ผลงานของเธอจะเป็นเรื่องของการจำลองห่วงขณะซึ่งเกี่ยวกับเวลาและ
Her work is imitate the environment.
ค่ะในขณะเดียวกันภาพตะวันก็ใน
She also
ทำเวิร์กช็อปนะคะกับกลุ่มนักเรียนนักศึกษา
Pap Tawan also work in a workshop with students. Ask a student to note down their feeling, how they feel at the moment, and put it in the container, the jar container.
ศิลปินคนสุดท้ายนะคะคือแม่ปานพาละหอม
Pan Parahom, our local artist.
แม่ปานพาละหอมจะไม่เคยเป็นคนที่อยู่นิ่งนะคะเป็นผู้หญิงที่มีพละกำลัง
She never stays still. She full of energy.
ทำไร่ทำสวนเธอทำการ
She's a farmer and also experiment
จากผลหมากรากไม้ที่เธอมีอยู่ในสวน
from the plants
ตอนนี้
in her farm.
กำลังทดลองนะคะ
She experiment
ผลหมากรากไม้เปลือกไม้ทั้งหลายที่อยู่ในไร่
with some bark
สำหรับย้อมผ้า
to make dye,
เส้นฝ้าย next
to dye yarn.
นี่คือภาพที่สามารถเห็นได้นะคะในชีวิตของเธอเป็นปกติ
This is the normal life. She poking the
ลูกหมากก็คือ
betel nut.
ผลหมากที่ชาวบ้านเอามาเคี่ยวแล้วก็เอามาตำเพื่อที่แกจะไปต้มเพื่อที่จะทำ
This betel nut, you boil it to make dyes.
อันนี้เป็นวันที่เราเปิดงานค่ะ
This is the open studios.
ของนฤมลปัดสำราญ
This is a work of Nalumon Patsamran.
กระสอบผ้าป่านนะคะเป็นการ
She used sacks
ติดตั้งบนทุ่งนาผลงานของเธอต้องการสะท้อน
in the rice field.
คิดและตั้งคำถามเกี่ยวกับ
She want to reflect
ชาวนา
her thinking
ที่
and ask questions about farmers.
เพราะ
that there will be no longer farmers, because farmers send their kids to schools. They think that to get higher education, they will have a better lives in the future. Who will be farmers? So that's her question.
Next please ค่ะแม่ปานพาราหอมนะคะ
ปานพาราหอม
ขอโชว์แม่ปานเป็นพิเศษเพราะว่าแม่ปานได้เสียชีวิตไปแล้วเมื่อประมาณ
She had passed 8 years ago, so I would like to show off more of her work. This is her dying yarns that she used at different barks in her farms. And so she explained to visitors during the open studios. Lillian's work is a video installation. She talked about peace. During that time, when she came to live peacefully, the political situation in Thailand is chaos. While we there,
คุณพ่อซึ่งเป็นเจ้าของไร่เหมือนกันจะเปิดทีวีซึ่งพูดถึง
elder fathers turn on his TV about protests, and also so there's a dispute about Thailand and Khmer borders that close to our farm. So Lillian's work reflects about peace, that we want peace, and she used snail with the logos of peace at their back. So that's an installation on the television monitors. During that time, we also have some activities. We invite local artists who are like elders. She is a poet, Isan poet. She can cite poetic Isan saying, and she invites her to exchange with artists.
นอกจากนั้นเราก็จะมีการเชิญศิลปินพื้นบ้าน
We invite folk artists, Molam, which is the Isan typical music and dance. This is when we have the party in the opening. The folk artists, their normal life is farming. When they come out as an artist, we can see their spirit as an artist.
Next piece ค่ะอันนี้จะเป็นภาพสบายๆนะคะเป็นการ
This is a casual time exchanging among artists. Tea time discussion.
Next piece ค่ะภาพสุดท้ายค่ะชีวิตแม่ปานนะคะกับการเคี้ยวหมาก
The last one, Pan Parhom chewing butternuts. That's the last picture.
You have the I think this is the last image, John.
Thank you, Nitya, for that very vibrant introduction to Manifesto and it's kind of an homage to Pamparaom. Now I'd like to turn to Shweta. And Shweta, I was wondering if you could say a few words about Gram Art Project, which I know began in late 2013. And I was wondering if you could say more about, the residency that kind of helped kick it off, if I understand correctly, but also how it's been developing since. Oh, so I think Shweta may be on mute right now. Hold on just a second. So just bear with us for a second while we resolve the technical difficulties. Okay, Shweta, try speaking now.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yes, yes. Hi. Thank you for having me here. I'm here on behalf of the Grammar Project. So basically, I belong to this village, Paratsinga, where this Grammar Project is located. And it has been started with a concern of like not only me but other people who were staying in the village, and also some of the artist friends uh, who really wanted to start a dialogue on the concerns which they were facing at that time, related to farming, related to other social and political situations in that everyone were facing. So basically, I would like to share the screen so that I can show more things.
Oh, Shweta seems to have frozen. Hopefully we'll get her back. Okay.
Yeah. So just to give an outlook, we are situated of India, and our village is like any other average village of India, which has 5,000 population of people and 1,000 homes. And basically, Grammar Project is a collective space of farmers, women makers, artists who are like collaborating since 2013, like which was our first residency, where we invited artists to talk on certain concerns related to farms, related to social and political situations around in and around Paratsinga. So basically, the first residency which we organized was kind of little abstract because we were having certain imaginations and certain concerns which I told you. But then how it will go, like I have been part of different residencies before, and I realized that it is very important to have certain these kind of art spaces where people, where artists can come and connect with local communities uh, uh, to have a dialogue and come up with some collective work. So basically, in 2014, we organized first residency where we invited artists from different part of India, and so we gave an open call. Also invited some artist friends which we already knew before, and we just shared our concern and created a space where they can create a dialogue with the villagers. So sharing the images of first residency, where you can see that artist Shemali from Sri Lanka and Satyabhama from Orissa, they collaborated with women and invited them in a common space, in a studio space of Grammar, and they are like conversing on certain issues which are considered as taboos, and like home violence and different things, which that point of time people were not sharing, like open to share with each other. So and creating different kind of theater in abandoned spaces where children can spend meaningful evenings. Um, this is the interaction between villagers and artists at the end of the residencies, sharing their experiences and stay with each other and learnings with each other. But the residency was little abstract, but then we started realizing the actual things like we really want to talk on. And when I say we, it's like artists, it's the localites of the village and everyone. So we decided to give an open call, which was supported by Coach Art Space in India. It was for talking on open defecation, where we again invited artists from different countries who also face this open defecation issues. So here you can see that Hamida Khatri from Pakistan, the artist, she collaborated with local villagers and also the social worker. Basically, the next step of residency was not only artists, but a middle person between artists and the villagers. So here we started inviting the people who were already working on certain things, like for instance in this space for open defecation. So here you can see the artist collaborated with children to make a puppet, which shows you that how to sit on a toilet seat, where most of the villagers have never seen toilet seat in their entire life. And then the discussions, because the residencies started becoming more concentrated on certain topics. So everyone used to like everyone means artists and villagers and social workers to connect and share their experiences of the day. So it becomes more helpful and meaningful for the next day. And then in this residency, artist friend with her students of art college in Orissa, they came to work with villagers again to make a playground. So every time we realize that the art material or the interventions, the material whatever needed for the intervention should really come from the collaboration with villagers itself, from village itself. It should not be any alien thing which people cannot connect to. So these kind of learnings and exchanges were taking place. So you can see the playground. And most of the villages into farming. So this was always coming in various senses. Like we were always like, and my father itself is farmer. So we were always talking about that how can we really talk about some farming concerns which were really bothering, and where whole villages growing being monocropping, only BT cotton is grown there and nothing for eating. So how can we talk on certain issues? So we invited artists and social workers and farmers of the village to collaborate all together, giving again the open call, where we all discussed about the issues and decided to do some land arts that, which were done in 7 different fields. So you can see the children also collaborating, where they get a bigger canvas to think, imagine and express. So you can see these images, the uh, graphs being laid on land, accompanied with a seed festival, which brought different farmers from nearby villages who do organic farming and do seed saving. So it was part of this land art festival. And then we created some spaces, collaborative spaces, like performative spaces next to our village lost 100 farmers in a year, because it was all the farms were replaced into special economic zones for factories. And spend some time thinking about and talking about the issue. So it was grown, these coffins were grown, and then again asking to Prime Minister, because our Prime Minister is like always so it was grown, this art was grown, asking the questions that, dear Prime Minister, please grow in India. And most of the work in this is done by village children and farmers itself. So yeah, different school visits. And this work is very important because it was done by a young farmer himself. The thought was his, and he says that he got a new voice to express his concerns. And so these kind of lads, and the land art made by girls in a girls' school where they don't have toilet, so they have grown toilet to pull the attention of villagers. But it does not stop on residencies, because lots of lots of individual artists who are coming that time, collaborating with villagers and doing various interventions in schools, in public spaces, farms. So you can see some of these interventions where artists made dustbin for common space, and one artist made the boat where we have dryland farming to show hopes that someday we'll do water conservation and then this boat will float in it. And the more permanent processes start aligned with these art residencies and artist interventions. Like from last 5 years, we are doing multi-cropping and doing organic farming, using old methods of seed saving and food processing. So yeah, these are some water rain harvesting works we have done. We created a lake, and the organic farming we started doing, where we started growing indigenous cotton, organic cotton, where we convert all the threads through hand spinning in charkha, and women in and around Parat Singha, there are 100 women who make these seed banks in their homes. So these are some more permanent processes start where, yeah. So you can see different techniques, and then seeds and sustainability and all art and things were coming all together. Then we started one more an interactive space studio where we and convert into everything is by hand. So you can see some more work here. So each and like from different age groups in the this. And there are some more interventions where villagers went to different art spaces. They were invited, like we were invited certain art spaces to share our voices. So this is these are some images you can see. Some workshop with different cities. So villagers going to different places, different art spaces, doing performances in villages, and then this performance is being showed in various art spaces. So you can see the image where villagers are performing, and then converting, like this is the space the land which were grabbed by us, the farming lands, to make water conservation space by government, but it never worked. So you can see the farmers and villagers performing, and food out of all this lost crop, which was edible, non-edible, and displayed in the center of India, in Delhi, where most of the decisions come for us. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shweta, for the overview of Graham Art Project. Zenda, I was wondering if you could say a little about Tree Person, Taroko Arts Residency Project, which I know you also kind of had gone to the park in 2011 for the first time. And then can you say a little about what's happened, when the program started in 2015?
Thank you, John and AA, for the invitation, for this opportunity to share about my work. I would begin to introduce the background of this project. And this program is based in the Tailoco National Park in Taiwan. And this community is Tailoco people who is hosting those our residents. And I study botany in my university. And I has been working in the field of science. After my graduation, I started to learn about art. So before the Tailoco artist residency, the beginning point is from one of my performance pieces. I carry an inflated tree, a plastic tree, as shown in the slide. I carry this tree, which looks like a palm. And in my project, I'm supposed to carry this tree and climb the hill. And that was in 2015, in June. What's special is after I reached the tribe Datong Dali, where our residence is now based, after I inflated my tree balloon. Aunt Ah Xiang, who was cooking at the time, she came out and told me she thinks the balloon is really beautiful. Can I save this plastic tree to show it to other residents and people who come up to the mountain? And at the time, I think, oh, that is a great idea. And that's how our story started. And I decided to leave this tree on the mountain, and I made my trip back home to Taipei. And after I arrived in Taipei, I received a gift from Aunt Ah Xiang, which is a pair of rose stones. And I look on the internet later and see that this is actually an expensive gift for me. And I was wondering what happened. And I planned to develop this project into something bigger. And this is what we have right now. At the time, I asked myself two questions. The first question is about how to exhibit something. Why would any community member of the tribe wish to show something at that place? And about Datong Dali tribe is called the dark tribe because that's one of the last tribes who has no accessibility to electricity in Taiwan. And the second one is question to me is because Aunt Ah Xiang thinks that the tree is really beautiful, but everyone from the art school thinks this plastic tree is far from something beautiful. So I wonder to myself if there is a different standard of beauty to the tribal community from different from the school. So to me, if we put it in a serious way, that would be a question about what art is. If the knowledge exists in the Tailoco people of beauty, how it is different or the same as our knowledge of beauty. So I was trying to answer these two questions in my practice, and that was from 2015 in June. after that, I started to build this art residency, and the first event was happened in the next year in June. I'm not a part of the indigenous community. I lived in Taipei and worked in Taipei, and the first time before I made the first word known to the world, I spent a lot of time with the Datong Dali tribe community. If you go to this tribe, you found that there's no road can let cars to go into this tribe, and then by foot it takes 6 days to reach this place. And before I finished the first project, I spent 3 weekends going back to the Dali community before I started the project. And to me, showing the art is a part of the art, but what's more important is the time you spend with the community there and the relationship that you build with the local people. And for the second year, I try to ask the local aunties to see if they are willing to become host families who can host artists in their community. I was also asked why should I place those residents or artists in residence who I would rather call them mountain researchers. Why this is so important for them to live as a part of the community is because, according to my observation, when those mountain researchers arrived in the community, after they spend time together, in their proposal and projects, we will find that the local community members will participate in those art projects. So in the end, when we see the presentation of those artists, you will see that community members has been involved as painters or photographers. And in the later projects, we actually involved 8 women from the local community to become curators of those art projects. So our goal is always going back to the 2 questions that we asked in the first place. If there's a standard of beauty for art for the local community, what would it be? And in this photo, it was made in the second event, introductory person, and then we did a lot of performance at the time. And at the time, the person who's in the middle is Dada Mona, who is in his 80s at the time, who is an elder of the community. And this is the photo that we published in the end. And for each year, we have 2 presentations to the public for the mountain researchers to share about their projects. One of them is in exhibition space. And this photo is from 2017. And then this particular event was held on the mountain. And this in 2020 to me, or I would ask if this program had brought changes to the local community, to me, or to artists. First thing is, I think for me or for the mountain researchers, had reached some and to reach an agreement that we are all outsiders and we're here to learn. We are here to share life. But what's special about tree person is if we're working with a community building project or some social intervention project, we really focus on the result. But for us, when I started tree person, what I care about is I want it to be really slow. I don't want to see us as outsiders came into the community as colonists. The work that I want to do is we build trust between us slowly and let all the local community people who are involved in this project to slowly participate into what the mountain researchers had invited them to do. For a lot of mountain researchers and artists came back a lot. For example, there's one group who is one artist from Hong Kong and from Swiss. They had stayed in very close communication with the ants that are in the local community. And I think that is a very special relationship that we treasure. And for another example, Candice from Australia is another artist who is interested in plants. And the women from the local community had shared her farmland for the artist to farm on it. And for the past several years, a lot of participants are friends that are from my social circle. But in the last event, we have invited 8 ants from the local community, and they will be the curator of events. And they got to decide the theme for the open call for the residency. And they decide which one of the proposals that they like. And in 2008 is the first time that we tried this method. And at the time, the theme is weaving a road back home. And for this tribe, because their road back home has been only accessible by foot, for them, weaving a road back home is very important for them. In 2019, when they decided the theme for the open call, they couldn't find a good theme. At the time, what happened is, at the time, a mountain researcher, Oh Jingyun, from last year had invited 8 tribal women to did drawings of their home, which you can see on the slide from 8 different women about their home. And this year, what we did is our open course theme is based on this drawing. So we would like to invite artists to make response to this drawing. So what I find interesting is what the curators ask for is not a specific theme. but it is a creation by them. It's an artwork created by them. But if you go onto our website, you will know that we're actually doing the open call for the next year's program, and which I would like to explain a little bit about the theme of next year's open call. And this year, there's a mountain researcher whose name is Qin Zhengde. His project works with Aunt Yuli, who go back to look for their root. And then there's some stories that had happened.
对，是，
村长，
对，
可不可以等一下，因为我们现在时间比较短了。Okay. So yeah, so before Zhendao talks about the next iteration, I kind of want to return to some of the points that he raised in his presentation about issues of building trust, because I think that this is one of the main kind of points have to do with in each of your cases. It's kind of how the relationships with the communities develop. And, you know, I think this issue of building the relationship over time is something that's a very important one. And Shweta, I was wondering, you know, like if you could speak a little about, you know, how that relationship between the artists who are part of the project and the members of the rural community developed. And, you know, was that something that really took a matter of years, you know, and what was that process like, and what's been the impact, I guess, you know? I think you made very clear that there are specific projects, but overall, is this something which is now kind of like an open dialogue between you? No. Okay. Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Now
Okay.
it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, I told before that I'm connected to this village because my father is farmer. So I've been off and on this village. My parents shifted to a nearby city for our studies. So I'm born and brought up there. But I always have my childhood friends here in this village. And I also had opportunity to be part of different residencies in this kind of alternative spaces. And I thought that it was always very important for artists to have such spaces which are not conventional in its very nature. And that's why here we our own experiences of different residencies and connections made us invite artists here in village. And because I was always connected to the village, people already knew me. But before inviting artists, I did a conversation with villagers, asking them the permission that if we can go with such kind of things. I did a presentation where I showed them the slides of my own residency experiences, and they were really very happy about it because they can see some hope, some interaction, some exchanges. Because generally villages are left like they are not even counted that the humans stay here like that. So they were really very happy about, and like they had certain acceptance. And the artist friends we invited here, and so I think that artists choose where they want to go. They know that what they want to experience. So always the artists who were here, the part of residency, they were always connected to the villagers. And also we did some exercises where we send artists to different homes to just stay overnight and connect, so that they can connect more better way to the people. And that's how these interactions are taking place. And now through social media and everything, like villagers are more connected to different artists who have been here before. So yeah. I can't hear your voice, Johnny.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Shweta, for the response to that. Nitya, I was wondering, you know, in your case, I think there was very specific reasons why, you know, workshop and residency took place on Bunbandan farm through family connections, and that was part of the motivation for the residencies taking place there. And I was wondering if you could, I think in your presentation you talked a little about the connections there, but I was wondering if there's anything you might want to add about the ongoing impact. I know that it was very important for you, the ability to connect and to continue the crafts traditions. Has that been something that has been enabled by the residency?
Okay, John. ทำไมถึงมาเลือกจัดที่ไร่บุญบันดาลอำเภอกันทะลักจังหวัดศรีสะเกษซึ่งก็คือภาคตะวันออกเฉียงเหนือของประเทศ
Why we set up in Bunbandan in the northeastern of Thailand or Isan, we call it Isan. There's a many explanation because I myself as is a northeasterner. The other reasons people from Isan has been looked down upon, that they are farmers, they are laborers who migrate to work in the cities. Another reason is because of the diversities of ethnicity, ethnic diversity, where we are located. And it's also a location that's near the borders of Thailand and Cambodia. The reason we want to set up the residency here because of the forest setting, the farmlands, and the hospitality of the landowner, the farm owner. The family who own the farms have local wisdom and capabilities, skills, and able to give. When we're there, the local artisans, craftsmen or craftwomen are very proud to invite to be like to exchange or show their skills to artists. I think artists themselves can benefit a lot from exchange with the local artists. My own example, I work with Elder Proma. He's a farmer and uses his spare time to do baskets weaving or weaving for utensil for livelihood, for daily utensils. Like they will catch fish in the rivers or the stream for food. When the artists come and live with the local people, they have an experience. They see the simple life of the Isan people. It just makes them happy. It's also build a relationship and make them like a family naturally.
You think I could answer enough your question, John?
Yeah, thank you, Nitaya. I think we actually, I think there's a lot more that could be said about each of the programs, and I think all of you gave very rich presentations about the residencies that you were involved with. At this point, I'm wondering if maybe we should open it up for questions from the audience. We already have a few. And one of them concerned the Women Manifesto and the archive. And I just want to point out that the exhibition that's on view at AAA is partly also in relation to the digitization of the archive. And so sometime in about a month or month and a half, hopefully, knock on wood, the Women Manifesto archive will be available for consultation online. So come check back in a little while and it should be available. So, and if those of you who are in the audience, if you have questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A and I will read them to our panelists. So the first question that I have is from Yifan, who says, I was wondering if the panelists could talk a bit more about the funding sources of their projects. What kind of donors and organizations are more willing to fund such community projects? In addition to generating cultural products such as images and artificers, can the panelists talk about some strategies to make financial economic contributions and changes to the local communities? This is a really interesting question. I think already touched on a little by, I think, Shweta, your presentation, but I think it'd be great to hear from all of you about this.
Yeah, so in this case of Grammar project, most of the residencies where we invited artists was funded by some or other art spaces, alternative art spaces in India itself. So it's like FICA, it's Coach, there are different spaces you can look for. But yeah, I think that there are some alternative art spaces who fund for such residencies if you apply them in different open calls which they these community engagements itself. And also when we start engaging with community, when we start sharing the concerns, when we start sharing ideas, the people from community itself, they come together to hold such residencies in their own capacities. So it's like always exchange kind of thing which we experienced here. That local community also fund artists in terms of living, in terms of material, in terms of basic things. So yeah, this way, and impact eventually, yes, like the continuous process of residencies exchanges which happens between community and artists, they make a space, open studio space for the community members also to come and explore their own what Changta told about the photographers from community itself, like they come and they involved and evolved to the residencies. So these kind of exchanges, yeah, the impact come in this, like it's you can see it in long term, like happening in long term, and within these things, small more interventions can take place, like in this space after these in residencies and interactions, some organic farming came into existence, and then after that those yarn artworks which women are making in their homes, they earn living out of it. And then some part of the total earning is kept again aside for these kind of residencies, or the exchanges also happen in barter systems, like where we earn for ourselves, keep some for residency, we grow organic food in terms of, we pay something in terms of money, in some things in terms of food which we grow. So these kind of exchanges can also can be looked upon, which is working for this system here.
Okay, great. And so in some ways, Graham does kind of work towards some kind of level of self-sustainability in some ways then, I mean, in terms of through the projects that are self-supporting at least, you know. Yeah, and Zhendao, I was wondering if you could talk about the question of funding, because I think in your case it's somewhat unusual, maybe.
好，我先稍微我回答这个问题的话，有关于制作这个财务方面的问题，因
I
为
would like to share the finance behind our production project.
基本上台湾
In Taiwan, the government of Republic of China had provided a very well-funded support. So each year we apply for a lot of governmental grants.
事实上对于政府的补助对于这个计划每一年执行的开支是不够的。然后
But
我现在
in
到目前为止，
reality, the governmental grant is not enough
因为我事实上我是白天是有
for our project.
我是用我
So for myself, I actually have a day job,
支持泰鲁格艺术计划。
and I have been supporting the local art residencies with my own savings.
就是非常年轻才
And to my understanding, is our program is still very young and at a beginner stage.
就是来驻村的人跟部落的人还在试着这个计划还在慢慢着陆的状况，所以我觉得
It is in a landing stage for both the artists and the local community. So for me, the financial choice I made is very good for our project.
有没有可能是有一些
But of course,
从来驻村的人他们的研究理念，然后有一些产出，然后去回馈给在地的经济呢？那我觉得
I also wonder if
是可能想这件事情还有点言之过早，但是
if we could find some kind of product that had been produced by artists who had participated in the artist residency, which can go back into the local economy. And I think it hasn't happened yet, but I would love to see it happen in the future.
Okay, so that's interesting, kind of thinking about questions of sustainability as well for your program. Nitaya, I was wondering if you could answer the question of funding, because it's something which has kind of, was always changed from year to year, right? In the case of the manifesto.
Since we organize 6 events. Each event has, we start from, I remember at the first manifesto, it was very difficult. We got, oh, ตายพูดผิด I sorry I reverse เอาไร พูดผิด sorry ครั้งที่สองครั้งที่สองเราประสบความสำเร็จค่ะเรา
The second event, we got funding
จากกทม
from the
สามารถจัดเป็น
Bangkok city.
ใหญ่ได้โดยเชิญศิลปิน
That is a big project that we invite 30 artists
พอตรงนั้น
in a public space in the park.
มัน strong ขึ้นแข็งแรงขึ้นใน
That event
public สาธารณะ
make a name for us,
แล้วก็ได้
make us known among public,
จากกทมด้วย
and we got support from the city, Bangkok city.
คิดโครงการต่อเนื่องได้
That make us to plan a continuous project
เมื่อปี 2001
till the workshop in 2001
เราจะได้ทุนสนับสนุนจากของ
and 2008.
Foundation
We got funding from Ford Foundation, Irek Ball Foundation, which international foundation,
ศิลปะร่วมสมัย
and also the cultural ministry organization, Thai.
เนี่ยจะรอได้วันนั้น
Oh, no. The Thai cultural ministry takes too long and that we cannot wait. So we have depends on international fundings.
จนมาถึงครั้งสุดท้ายที่เราจัด residency นี่เรา
The last one that we have the artist residency in 2008,
ศิลปะร่วมสมัยเลยนะ
that we got the funding from the contemporary arts department of the culture ministry of Thailand. But the process is very tedious.
ค่าใช้จ่ายที่จะเกิดขึ้นใน
That you have to go according to the fiscal year.
ใน
the Thai fiscal year, and that and that how to balance the sheet. And anyway, it's going well. After that, we could not find any funding, either from the international funding, even from the connection from Patagon in Australia. It's very tough after that to find funding.
Okay. So in other words, I think, Nitaya, what I'm hearing is that, in your case, it was a very specific, condition of the project that it was always meant to be international. And so partly it was kind of about bringing artists from all parts of the world to different parts of Thailand, whether it's Bangkok or in the countryside. And without that, that kind of stops being one manifesto. Whereas I think Graham Art Project started off being an international residency, but then kind of shifts in some ways. It's the modus operandi, I guess, of the residency, and focuses more to that community-based relationship. So this, I think, leads up to another one of the other questions from the audience, from Eileen Ramirez, who asked, if you could talk about the question of reciprocality. How the artists coming onto the sites become beneficial to the communities that are engaged with, so that the residency doesn't become intrusive or extractive of a village immersive experience. So can you talk, in other words, about the kind of the exchange between the artists and the communities? I think all of you have touched on it to some degree, but maybe, I think that, if you could expand on that. I mean, while you're thinking, like Shweta, I think in your case, one thing that's very interesting about Graham, and actually also about Tree Person, is that it's not just about bringing artists to a place, right? Because in the case of Graham, the locals also go elsewhere. They are part of this kind of, there's a reciprocal exchange where the locals then become the artists in some ways and go abroad or go elsewhere in India anyway. And in the case of Tree Person, what's become interesting in the more recent iterations, Zenda, is that the locals, the indigenous members, become the curators of the project. And so in that sense, they become the creative, part of the creative addition too. But if you have more you'd like to say, Shweta?
อันนั้นคือเขาถามตุ๊กว่าสำหรับฟูมานิเฟสโตใช่ไหม
Yeah, one experience which I shared.
นั่น
So okay, so Shweta, do you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Nitaya, do you want to say something?
No, you say first. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, one experience which I shared to you, that the first residency, it was very abstract, and we invited artists. They also wanted to experience something like this, to be part of community. Some artists were already working in their spaces, collaborating with community, which I was inspired by them.
Yeah.
And invited them. So it was like, but overall there was like, it was a 10-day residency, and artists were somewhere finding their own space of comfort. Like they want a space from community, because the community members were very excited. It was the first residency for them. They don't want to live any artist for a single second also. So artists were like finding their own space. But then we realized that it is just 10 days residency, and it should be just endless communication, because it will what will matter for in long terms. So that's why, to make that connection, we realized that one day we really need to say artists that today you need to find your home for this night to stay. So they started connecting with community and then asking some artists were really very angry that how you can do this. But then it was like, no, please, like it is important to connect. Otherwise, 10 days you will find your own space. So that's why, and then artists started communicating with people, and then people hosted them. So there was one girl who was coming every day. She was here every day, and she asked. She said that, okay, come to my place. And the artist was not knowing that she's from different village. Then they together started walking, and they crossed some 3-4 kilometers walking. And then the artist realized, okay, she's coming every day to just meet me, because it matters a lot for her, because she has never been out of her home, and like out of the village. So yeah, that way, like, I don't know if I have answered the question, but it is like a sharing, like for both community and for artists, we need to create that space to really connect with. And yeah, I don't know if I have answered the question, but it's just a sharing.
Yeah, so it sounds like in some ways it's kind of to de-hierarchize or to like kind of destructure the residency, so that in some ways it becomes about the individuals and their need to kind of communicate with one another in some ways. Nitya, did you you wanted to say something? Or Nitya? I think she's listening.
So next is mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm thinking my experience of organizing workshop and residencies inศรีสะเกษ in the northeast of Thailand. It's the first 2 times that we going into the communities. I think that artists are more benefit than communities. So I'm thinking that how community will benefit more. I'm thinking and talking with Vasha, who's another organizer. I want a permanent house for the artist residency. If we have a place, so we can be part of the communities, be there as families. That way we can exchange, shares what artists and communities can benefit in a sustainable way. And that way, we also don't need a big budget. This way, also the local people will understand why the artists are here. This way, I think that we don't have to find a big budget. But how to do is it has to run continuously and in a long term, so that it will have a good outcome for the communities. That is what our plan in the future.
That's really interesting, Nitya, because I think this question of the long term is something I think Shweta with Grandma Project, it's very much about a long-term commitment to to Paratsinga, the village. And Senda, I think this is the question of the long term is something that you brought up in your presentation and talking about the relationship with the members of the community, that, you know, it's not just about coming in for a month, it's also about kind of like multi-year, right, developing that. Can you say more about the kind of like the thinking about, you know, the kind of how that affects the exchange or the relationship?
我稍微举几个例子来回应这个问题好了。就是事实上我后来
I'm gonna give some
说，事实上从
to answer this question. For the past few years, we chose two places as our place for presentation. One in an art cube and art space in Taipei, or on the mountain in the community. So when we did it in the art space in Taipei, we invited all the aunties from the community. And the relationships between the artwork and those community members has grown so strong. It become as if they're family members. And for this year, our theme is a little bit controversial for the open call, and the aunties came to help. And then what they did is to look for their root. They had found look back on the history of the church that was once in the community, and they had founded a monument for the church. And the auntie had shared with me that they think it's a great thing that the artists came to the community because it's a great chance for the younger generation from the community to learn about their own cultures. And for me, it's very important.
Okay, so in some ways it kind of provides a service to the community itself. Okay, so we are almost out of time, but I did have, there are a couple of more questions from the audience, and it actually dovetails very nicely with the last question that I was hoping we could ask. So from the audience, the question, oh, actually now there's a little more. Okay, so from the audience, the questions are, one was for Nitaya, you know, will there be more Women Manifesto events since, you know, the last one was in 2008? And will you expand more of the project in the future that still concerns female, women, and mother, or other areas within the Isan community? I think this is something you touched on in your plans for the coming gathering. And then the last question is Ashish Motwani asking, what are the current possibilities for young artists in today's time? So this is, I think, a very kind of maybe a good place to end on, because I mean, obviously, all of each of the residencies depended on travel to some extent, and the possibility of travel and displacement, at least temporary. And I was wondering if you could say a little, you know, what your thinking is in terms of the residency aspects of the projects that you're working on, and how you think that might change or shift, or how you're thinking about that has changed or shifted in the last few months. Yeah.
ค่ะตอนนี้จริงๆแล้วเราวางแผนไว้นะคะกับ
At the moment we are planning with Vachana
เราอยากจะจัดเป็นWomen Manifesto Gathering อีกครั้ง
We want to organize Women Manifesto Gathering
ทิ้งช่วงไปร่วม10 ปีนะคะ
That we have a big pause of 10-year gap
จริงๆวางแผนไว้สำหรับปลายปีนี้แต่ว่าด้วยสถานการณ์โควิด
but because of the COVID-19
ก็คงเป็นไปไม่ได้ที่ใครจะเดินทางได้ก็
It's
เลย
impossible for people to travel
ก็เลยวางแผนว่าเราแต่ละคนนะคะ
So we have planned that
จัดงาน Women Manifesto ภายใต้หัวข้อ Gathering คือการ
the theme Gathering
การอยู่ร่วมกันในแต่ละประเทศสำหรับตัวเอง
in their own country
สำหรับตัวฉันเองก็จะจัดที่อุดรธานี
I myself I will host it in Udon Thani another northeast province where I moved back to my hometown I'm just moved like recently and I have planning that I will use this land to be the permanent home of Wu Manifesto. At the moment, we have 6 connections under the theme gatherings. One that I will run in Udon Thani. Vasha will run it in Baroda in India. Paptawan will run it in Australia. Kalasak will run in Germany. Nilofa Ahmad will run it in UK. Nina will run it in Brazil. That will be 6 events. They will run their own Wu Manifesto. And we hope to get together at the end of the year. And we will publicize, let you know.
Okay.
It will still the same topics about women artists.
Okay, so in some ways turning towards the local community and becoming the host for the residency yourself. Yeah. Shweta, how has the last few months affected your thinking
ท้อง
about
ถิ่นใครท้องถิ่นมันเป็นลักษณะนั้น
Okay. How has the last few months kind of affected your thinking about Gram Art Project and how you run Gram?
Basically, like I've shared that like most of the things now are done within community itself. Like most of the some small creative things which we want to create, and arts and everything which is like ongoing in fields, in homes. So this is the way we can communicate to outer world about our concerns. And in political situation, there is lots going in India. We really want to talk on, and that is what we as in community or creative expressions doing here. And Gram Art Project is because now we are the permanent residents here. So it is like open 24/7 for artists. This pandemic has really stopped the things, like other people coming here, but we are located in a very remote place. So it is easy, it is easy for us to access within the community. It's not locked down as in cities and all. So it is like good for us that nothing has stopped within the community for us. So the regular things we are doing. Yes, for residencies, we had some plan in these months, but then it was a sudden lockdown and the things. So we are thinking to collaborate with some artists online. I don't know how it can happen. We are just planning the structure of it. So it's just on like.
Okay, yeah. But so really thinking about the local, because like working with what you have. Zendao, like so in the case of Tree Person, there actually is a call for residencies that's on your website now, as you mentioned earlier. And the deadline is November. So are you expecting people to be applying, or what's going to happen, do you think?
Open call.
Open call, yeah.
I cannot go.
非常谢谢 John， 然后非常对于今年的这个Open Call 的主题是
And this year our Open Call theme, as we mentioned before, is a part of Qinzheng, the artist project. What he was doing was a monument that is looking for the root. But what the aunt from the community decided in the end is they changed the project into looking for the root of the church. And the aunt had decided to put a sentence on the monument. And this sentence is about the Sakadang Church was established in the year of 1933. And then I would like to start my open project on this specific sentence to be a part of the literature. And I would like to invite everyone to do our open call. And then we would really want to see everyone in Taiwan in the future.
That's a great thought to end on the idea that, you know, of that someday, hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll all be able to visit each other at everyone else's residencies. And so on that note, a hopeful note, I'd like to thank our three speakers, Nitaya Wirawiworakul, Shweta Patad, and Tsenda Chen. And to thank our very talented translators as well, Vivian Xing and Lawanjira Sorodej, who are themselves also artists as well as residents of various programs. And so, you know, this is something that I think has been very personal for them as well. And to the wonderful team at AA, my colleagues, and to the audience, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Please join us again. Our next program will be life lessons in a couple of weeks, I believe. And then we will have a second program related to crafting communities in November. I think scheduled tentatively for the 17th of November, thinking about feminism. And one last word, I'd like to thank the Women in Art History Initiative, with whose support this was made possible and who are supporting, in fact, the Womanifesto digitization project. So thank you to the supporters of the project, and thank you to the audience, and thank you all for joining us, and have a good night or good morning, wherever you may be. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, everyone.